Your
Maria
journey
Sullivan
starts
woke up
today.
before
And
sunrise
while
that
mine
morning.
began many
The
years
sky was
ago,
still
the
soft
lessons
gray,
I
and
learned
her
are the
small
same
apartment
ones I
smelled
want to
of
share
fresh
with you
coffee.
now.
She stood in front of the mirror, brushing her hair with slow, careful strokes. It was the day she had been waiting for, the day her son, Ethan, graduated from college. For years, she had dreamed of sitting in that big university hall, clapping as his name was called. She had worked long hours as a freelance journalist, writing small articles for online papers that barely paid. Sometimes she worked all night just to afford Ethan's textbooks or his rent. She often told herself, it's worth it. One day, this boy will walk across that stage, and I'll forget every struggle. When Ethan came out of his room, he was wearing his graduation gown. He looked grown, tall, and confident. Maria's eyes filled with pride. You look just like your father, she whispered. Ethan smiled and hugged her. Mom, this day is yours too. You made it happen. By 10 o'clock, they reached the university. The campus was filled with students in gowns and proud parents holding cameras and flowers. Laughter, music, and voices filled the air. Maria felt her heart beating faster. She was truly happy. After so many years of hardship, this moment felt like light after a long tunnel. Inside the auditorium, the air was cool and bright. The stage was decorated with banners, and the university crest hung proudly behind the podium. Maria sat in the second row, right behind the front seats reserved for faculty. She could see Ethan sitting with his classmates, waving at her. She smiled, waving back. Then she noticed someone walk up to the stage, Professor Daniel Brooks. She had heard Ethan talk about him many times. He was one of the most respected professors at Crestwood University, famous for being strict but fair. Ethan often said he admired him, though sometimes he mentioned the man could be harsh and proud. Maria clapped politely when Daniel started speaking. He congratulated the students, joked about their late-night study sessions, and thanked the parents for their support. Everything seemed fine. Until it wasn't. Daniel's tone suddenly changed. His eyes moved slowly across the room until they stopped on Maria. His voice became sharper, colder. You know, he said with a small smile, success often comes from good guidance. But sometimes it comes from people who build their lives on lies. The crowd fell quiet. Maria blinked, unsure what he meant. Some of us, he continued, pretend to be something we're not. Some even claim to be journalists when their whole career is built on fraud. We teach our students to seek truth, not to follow those who fake it. People turned their heads toward her. Ethan froze in his seat. Daniel's gaze didn't move. It was locked on Maria. Maria felt her hands tremble slightly. A rush of heat spread across her chest. He was talking about her. About the time years ago when she had been accused unfairly of publishing a false report. It wasn't true. She had uncovered corruption in a local company, but her editor had been bribed to shut the story down. To protect the company, they blamed her. The story had ended her career in big journalism. Ethan had been young then. She had never told him all the details. She didn't want him to carry her pain. Now, standing in front of hundreds, this professor was using her past to humiliate her, on her son's biggest day. The whispers in the crowd grew louder. Maria could feel eyes burning into her back. A woman behind her muttered, "Is that her? The journalist from that old scandal." Ethan stood up slightly, his face red. "Professor Brooks, that's enough," he said, but Daniel ignored him. Maria slowly stood. Her chair made a quiet scraping sound against the floor. Every step she took toward the stage felt heavier, but her mind was calm. Years of struggle had taught her how to stay still in chaos. She walked up to the microphone, facing Daniel. For a long moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the faint hum of the air conditioner and the echo of distant footsteps outside the hall. Maria looked him in the eye and said softly, "You should check your email now." Daniel blinked, confused. A few people in the audience whispered, "What did she say?" He gave a small laugh, the kind that hides fear. "Excuse me?" She repeated, louder this time. "Check. Your email." Daniel frowned, pulling out his phone from his pocket. His fingers trembled slightly as he unlocked it. The silence in the hall was deep enough to hear the rustle of his suit sleeve. His eyes moved across the screen, and then froze. He didn't move. His face turned pale. He looked up at Maria with wide eyes. She stood still, her hands folded in front of her. The giant screen behind them suddenly flickered to life. Everyone turned their heads toward it. The projector had connected automatically to the university's live news feed. A breaking headline appeared in bold letters. "Exclusive investigation. Crestwood professor caught accepting bribes to alter student grades. Report by journalist Maria Sullivan. The hall gasped. Ethan's mouth fell open. Maria didn't blink. It was all there, screenshots of emails, audio recordings, and documents. Every secret Daniel Brooks thought was hidden. Every lie he had used to climb higher. Daniel took a step back. "This can't be," he started, but his voice cracked. Maria looked at him quietly. "You wanted truth, Professor. Now everyone can see it." The audience was silent, too stunned to move. Cameras flashed. Ethan stared at his mother, realizing at that moment who she truly was. Not a fraud, not a failure, but the bravest woman he had ever known. And as the screen kept playing the evidence, the proudest day of Maria's life turned into something even bigger. The day truth finally came back for her. She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She simply stepped down from the stage, her heels echoing through the hall, leaving behind a man whose career and lies had just fallen apart.
The current
silence
framework
after Maria's
fundamentally
words felt
misunderstands the
endless.
scope of the problem.
Every person in that
We
huge hall
cannot
sat
expect
frozen.
different results if
The
we
only
ignore
sounds
the
were the
systemic
soft
failures.
clicking of Daniel's phone and the heavy beating of hearts. Professor Daniel Brooks stood still, staring at his screen. His eyes moved fast, reading the first lines of the article. The color drained from his face as he scrolled down. His lips trembled and his fingers shook. The article was real. It was live on every news site. His name was printed in bold letters. It said he had taken money from students in exchange for higher grades. There were screenshots of bank transfers, photos from his office, and even audio clips of his voice agreeing to fix results. Maria had made sure the proof was undeniable. The projector behind them automatically mirrored the article from his phone. Everyone could see it. The large words glowed on the screen. Investigation by journalist Maria Sullivan. Gasps filled the hall. Parents whispered. Students exchanged confused looks. Some began recording with their phones. Daniel looked at Maria with disbelief. You did this?" he asked in a hoarse voice. Maria didn't move. Her calmness only made his fear louder. "You brought this on yourself," she said softly. The dean, Margaret Hill, stood up from the front row. "What's going on here?" she demanded, looking between them. She turned toward Daniel. "Professor Brooks, what is this?" Daniel couldn't speak. He just stood there, sweating under the bright stage lights. The air in the hall felt heavy, thick with tension. Maria took a step back, letting the truth speak for itself. She had no anger in her face, only quiet strength. Ethan rose from his seat. His mind was spinning. A few minutes ago, he was proud and nervous. Now he was shocked, confused, and suddenly aware that his mother had done something much bigger than he could have imagined. He looked at her, his voice trembling. "Mom, you knew all along?" Maria turned her head slightly toward him. Her eyes were kind but firm. "Yes, and I waited for the right moment." Daniel suddenly tried to defend himself. "This is fake. She's lying," he shouted, his voice cracking. "She's trying to destroy me because of what I said." Maria raised an eyebrow. "You think the audio clips of your voice are fake? Or the screenshots from your university email?" The dean turned to one of the staff members near the projector. "Pause the display," she ordered. But the staffer hesitated. The university's own network was broadcasting the article. It couldn't be stopped. Maria had timed it perfectly. The report had been scheduled to go live at that exact hour. Daniel's knees weakened. He grabbed the side of the podium for support. "You'll pay for this," he muttered. Maria took one step closer to him, her voice quiet but strong. "I already did. I paid for it when your friends ruined my name years ago." The dean's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" Maria turned to face the audience. Her voice didn't shake. 5 years ago, I wrote an article exposing corruption inside a private company that funded this university. The story disappeared overnight, and my name was blamed for it. I lost my job, my home, and almost lost my son's education. And now, she looked back at Daniel, I finally found the missing link, him. The whispers grew louder. Students began standing. Ethan's friends looked at each other, realizing their professor wasn't who they thought he was. Daniel covered his face with his hands. "This isn't happening," he muttered. Then the dean stepped forward, her voice calm but cold. "Professor Brooks, you are suspended immediately. You will be escorted out until an investigation is complete." Security guards entered the hall quietly. One of them walked toward Daniel. He looked defeated, his shoulders slumped, his head down. Ethan watched as his mentor, the man he once respected, was led off the stage like a criminal. When Daniel passed Maria, he stopped for a moment. "You destroyed me," he said under his breath. Maria didn't answer. She only said, "No, Daniel. You destroyed yourself." He looked at her one last time, eyes filled with rage and shame, before the guards guided him out through the side door. The dean turned back to the microphone. Her voice trembled slightly as she spoke to the audience. We will continue the ceremony in a few minutes. Please remain seated." But nobody could focus. The moment had changed everything. Ethan walked up the stairs to his mother. "Mom," he whispered, "I can't believe this. Why didn't you tell me?" Maria looked at him with soft eyes. "Because it wasn't the right time. I wanted you to finish your degree first, without being dragged into my past." Ethan swallowed hard, trying to hold back tears. "He hurt you. He tried to humiliate you in front of everyone." Maria smiled faintly. "And he gave me the perfect stage to tell the truth." The audience slowly began clapping. It started with one person, then another, then more, until the sound filled the entire hall. Maria's hands shook slightly. She hadn't expected applause. She wasn't looking for revenge. All she had wanted was to make sure the truth finally came out. Ethan turned to the crowd, tears in his eyes. He raised his hand, signaling them to stop. "Thank you," he said softly, "but this is my mother's victory, not mine." The dean nodded respectfully. "You raised a brave woman, Mrs. Sullivan," she said. Maria shook her head. "No, I raised a good man." Outside, the sky was bright blue, but the news had already spread. Reporters were waiting near the main gate. Cameras flashed as they shouted questions. Maria didn't stop to talk to anyone. She just took Ethan's hand and said, "Let's go home." As they walked out, Ethan whispered, "Those 4 words, Mom. Check your email now. You said them like you knew exactly what would happen." Maria looked at him and smiled quietly. "I did. Sometimes you only need a few words to end years of lies." They walked down the steps together, mother and son, side by side. Behind them, the sound of camera shutters followed, the sound of truth finally being seen. And though Maria didn't say it aloud, she felt something deep inside her heart, peace. The kind she hadn't felt in years. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't running from her past. She had faced it and won. The news about the incident at Crestwood University spread faster than wildfire. By the time Maria and Ethan reached home that evening, her name was already trending online. Social media was filled with clips from the graduation ceremony. Some showed the moment Maria said, "Check your email now." Others showed the professor's shocked face as the article appeared on the big screen. The comments were endless. "This woman is a legend. Justice served live. I want to be this calm when life attacks me." But while the internet was celebrating her, Maria sat quietly on her couch, holding a cup of tea she hadn't touched. Ethan paced the room, still overwhelmed. "Mom, do you realize what you did? You took down a corrupt professor on live camera." Maria gave a tired smile. It wasn't about taking him down. It was about clearing the truth. He stopped and looked at her. "You could have exposed him months ago. Why wait until now?" Maria placed the cup down and looked at her son. Her eyes were soft but steady. "Because timing matters, Ethan. If I had released it earlier, the university might have hidden it again. But when he insulted me in public, he gave me the stage, and I made sure the world was watching." Ethan shook his head in disbelief. "You planned all of this, didn't you?" Maria nodded slightly. "I didn't plan his words, but I knew a man like him would eventually reveal his arrogance. I just had to be ready when he did." She turned on the TV. Every channel was talking about her story. One news anchor said, "Journalist Maria Sullivan, who was falsely accused years ago, made a stunning comeback today by exposing corruption within Crestwood University." Ethan's heart swelled with pride. For so long, people had whispered about his mother's scandal. Now everyone knew the truth. But Maria wasn't celebrating. Her face was thoughtful, almost sad. "Do you know what hurts the most?" she said quietly. "It took years for truth to win, years of people calling me a liar." Ethan sat beside her. "They were wrong, Mom. Everyone can see that now." She looked at him and smiled softly. "Yes, but I don't want you to think revenge fixes everything. What I did was justice, not anger. Never confuse the two." The next morning, their small apartment doorbell rang. When Maria opened it, Dean Margaret Hill stood there with 2 university officials. She was dressed neatly, her expression serious but respectful. "Mrs. Sullivan," she said, "may we come in?" Maria nodded and invited them inside. They sat around the small dining table. The dean spoke first. "On behalf of Crestwood University, I want to apologize. What happened today was unacceptable. Professor Brooks's actions were unethical, and we failed to act sooner. Maria folded her hands on the table. I appreciate your words, Dean Hill. But this wasn't just about one man. It's about a system that hides people like him. The dean nodded slowly. You're right. We've already started an internal review. We also want to offer you a position as an external consultant to help us rebuild our integrity program. You've proven what real journalism looks like. Maria blinked in surprise. I didn't do this for a job. We know, the dean said gently. That's why we trust you. Ethan smiled proudly. See, Mom? Even they understand now. Maria sighed. I'll think about it. My only wish is that no other student or parent has to face what I did. After the meeting, as the officials left, Ethan hugged her tightly. I'm so proud of you, he whispered. That afternoon, Maria finally opened her laptop. Her inbox was flooded with messages, old colleagues, news agencies, and strangers thanking her for standing up for the truth. Some even offered her writing positions again. She scrolled through hundreds of subject lines but stopped at one email from an unfamiliar address. It read, You won't get away with this. There was no name, no signature. But Maria knew exactly who had sent it, Daniel Brooks. Her heart didn't race. She just exhaled slowly and deleted it. Cowards always hide behind threats, she murmured. Over the next few days, investigators confirmed everything in her article. Daniel had accepted money from students for years. Some graduates came forward, admitting they had paid him out of fear. The story grew even bigger. Ethan's phone rang nonstop. Classmates, reporters, and friends all wanted to talk about his mother. But Maria avoided interviews. She didn't want fame. She wanted peace. Still, one interview request stood out, from the Morning Herald, the newspaper that had once fired her. The editor's message said, We made a mistake years ago. We'd like to make it right. Maria smiled faintly. Funny how truth changes people's minds, she said. When she met the editor at a small cafe, he looked older and tired. Maria, he said, you were right back then. I knew it, but didn't have the courage to stand with you. I hope you can forgive me. Maria took a deep breath. I already did. I had to, otherwise I'd never move on. The man nodded with relief. Then let us do something right this time. Come back. Lead our investigative section. Maria hesitated. I'll think about it. My son's graduation was supposed to be his day, not mine. The editor smiled. You both earned it. That night, when Maria returned home, Ethan was sitting on the couch watching a replay of the graduation video online. He turned the laptop toward her. Mom, look at the comments. There were thousands of them. Strangers calling her brave, inspiring, powerful. One comment caught her attention. This woman didn't shout. She didn't fight. She just told the truth, and it was louder than any insult. Maria's eyes softened. She turned to Ethan. Maybe this is what your father meant when he said silence can be strong. Ethan nodded. You were silent for years, Mom. But when you finally spoke, the whole world listened. Maria smiled, placing her hand on his shoulder. Then I hope you remember that, Ethan. Never fear truth, no matter how late it comes. Outside, the city lights flickered in the dark. The world was noisy with opinions, cameras, and screens, but inside their small home, everything felt calm. For the first time in many years, Maria didn't feel like she had to defend herself. She didn't feel like an outcast or a victim. She felt whole again, like the truth had finally returned her peace. And though the world saw her as a hero, she saw herself as something simpler, a mother who kept her promise to her son, to never let lies win. 3 days after the ceremony, peace ended with a single letter. It came in a stiff white envelope with the university seal. Ethan opened it at the kitchen table, his hands steady at first, then shaking as he read the words aloud. Pending review of Professor Brooks's conduct, some grades he supervised may be reevaluated. Diplomas connected to his courses are temporarily on hold. He looked up, eyes wet. They might hold mine, Mom. Maria felt the floor tilt for a second. She took the letter, read it twice, then placed it down like glass. We'll answer with facts, she said softly. The same way we always do. That afternoon, they met in a small conference room on campus. Dean Margaret Hill sat at the head of the table with 2 ethics officers and the head of the department. A red light on a recorder blinked. The room smelled faintly of old paper and lemon cleaner. We are not punishing you, Ethan, the dean said carefully. But we must check every grade Professor Brooks handled. From the doorway, a lawyer stepped in. Daniel Brooks's lawyer. He set a folder on the table and spoke with a smooth, practiced voice. Let the record show, he said, that my client denies all allegations. Further, he raises a concern that Mr. Sullivan benefited from special treatment. If Mr. Sullivan's grades are invalid, his diploma must be revoked. Ethan's breath caught. Maria put a hand on his shoulder. We brought our own records, she said calmly. Please connect this to the projector. The ethics officer plugged in Maria's laptop. A timeline appeared. Drafts, emails, code commits, and submission receipts, all with dates and times. These are version histories from Ethan's thesis repository, Maria explained. Every change is tracked. Look at the commit logs, months of work. And here, these are the peer review comments from 2 other professors, not Brooks. Their approvals are time-stamped before the final grade. The head of department leaned forward. This is solid. Where did you get the peer comments? Ethan cleared his throat. I asked Dr. Leong and Dr. Perez to review my work early, because Professor Brooks often delayed feedback. I wanted backup. The dean nodded slowly. Good judgment. Maria clicked to the next slide. Also, this email. The screen showed a short message from Ethan to Brooks, sent 10 months earlier. Professor, a classmate suggested paying to pass. I refused. I'm reporting this to the department if it continues. Silence filled the room. Even the lawyer stopped flipping his papers. The dean looked at Ethan. Why didn't you send that to me? I thought it would stop if he knew I wouldn't play along, Ethan said. I didn't want drama. I just wanted to earn it. The lawyer tried one last push. A single email proves nothing. Maria raised a finger. Then let's add the lab server logs. She pulled up access records Dr. Leong had sent that morning. Every build of Ethan's project is recorded under his ID from the university lab network. No one else touched it. The head of department sat back, eyes softening. This is more documentation than most theses have. The dean folded her hands. Thank you, Mrs. Sullivan. Mr. Sullivan. We have enough. She turned to the lawyer. The hold on Ethan's diploma is lifted effective now. Ethan exhaled for the first time in minutes. His shoulders dropped. He looked like a boy again, relieved and a little stunned. Maria squeezed his hand under the table. But the meeting wasn't over. The ethics officer cleared her throat and opened a new folder. There's another matter we must address. Professor Brooks's doctorate. The lawyer stiffened. His PhD is from Eastmont University, not Crestwood. You have no standing. We do, the officer said, sliding copies of emails across the table. Because the dissertation he claims as his own matches, word for word in places, a student thesis from 15 years earlier. The student's work was never published. He was expelled at the time for plagiarism, but those records were sealed. We found the original committee chair. He says the student came to him crying, insisting it was the professor who copied, not him. The room went ice still. Maria kept her face neutral, but her heart pounded. This was the piece she had suspected and searched for, the thread that made every arrogant act make sense. He had not only taken money, he had once taken a life's work. The dean spoke like a judge. We've already notified Eastmont. They've opened proceedings to revoke Professor Brooks's degree. We will submit our evidence. The lawyer stood face tight. You can't. We can, the dean said simply. Because truth doesn't stop at a campus line. After the meeting, mother and son stepped into the cold hallway. Ethan leaned against the wall, eyes closed, breathing out a long, shaky laugh. So the twist, he said, voice soft, wasn't just that he took bribes. He built his whole career on a stolen start. Maria looked at him, her expression both sad and proud. Arrogance is a poor foundation, son. It always cracks. That evening, the university held a brief ceremony in a small hall. No balloons, no band, just a podium, a few staff members, and Ethan in his gown. The dean handed him the diploma with both hands. Mr. Sullivan, she said, this belongs to you. Without doubt. Ethan looked at his mother before taking it. Thank you, he said, voice steady. Then he turned to the handful of students who had gathered after hearing the news. I learned something this week, he said. Silence can feel safe. But truth gives you your future back. He walked down the steps and placed the diploma next to Maria's framed article in their living room later that night. 2 rectangles of paper, side by side, catching the same warm lamp light. The calls kept coming in the days after. Job offers for Ethan, editor roles for Maria, invitations to speak about ethics. Maria accepted one thing, a part-time role building a transparent reporting system for the university. She wanted a place where scared students could speak without fear, where no mother would have to fight on graduation day. As for Daniel Brooks, his name left the hallways like smoke leaving an open window. The committees met, the letters arrived, and the titles that once covered him fell away, one by one. The last announcement was the quietest. Eastmont moved to revoke his degree. No camera caught it. No crowd watched. But the world that he had built on another person's work finally let him go. On a quiet Sunday, Maria and Ethan walked across campus at sunset. The empty seats from graduation were stacked in shadows. The stage was gone. The air smelled like cut grass. Ethan slipped his hand into hers. "Do you regret saying it?" Those 4 words. Maria smiled at the sky's thin gold line. "No, I regret the years I stayed silent and let lies define me." But those 4 words weren't revenge. They were a door. We just walked through. They stopped by the glass of the computer lab. Inside, screens glowed with students' late-night work. Ethan looked at his reflection and then at his mother's. "Truth chose us back," he said. "It did," she answered. They kept walking, no crowd behind them, no cameras ahead. Just the soft sound of their steps and the steady, quiet feeling that comes when a long fight is over and the right things are finally in the right places.